How is everyone today? Good.
Complaints? No complaints?
All right.
I will avoid complaining. It just makes everyone unhappy. So, no issues.
All right. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Well, we're got a content illusion open mic today, and you're first to the table. So let's go ahead and just dive in. Do you have a topic that you'd like to tee up? Either one of you. Jim, you just had a conference yesterday, an Innovation for Good conference. You want to unpack a moment of joy from ISSP's world?
Sure. We had
I'm sorry, ISSIP. I got to get the acronym right. So
right. Yeah. We say IZIP, like innovation
IZIP.
zips around the world. Yeah, IZIP is a nonprofit professional association with about 1,600 members worldwide. Anybody can join for free. And the focus is service innovation, which is, some people think they understand innovation, and service innovation is a particular perspective on innovation, where you think of innovation in terms of entities that give and get service, like people, like businesses, like governments. But anyway, we did a Tech for Good yesterday. So we had a really exciting speaker lineup, starting with Carlotta Arthur from National Academy of Engineering. She leads the social behavioral section, and I think pretty much everybody agreed that, technology is kind of neutral. It can be used for good or bad. So the harm has to do with people's experience of harm, and benefits are people's experience of benefits. So she, because she leads social behavioral there at the National Academies, advocated for technologists to ensure they have a social behavioral person on their team at the very beginning. And she used various ways of emphasizing you don't bring the social behavioral people in at the end as a band-aid when you see the problems. You got to have them there in the kitchen while you're preparing stuff. And then Vanita Wells from Meta showed virtual reality and how that might be used for good. And she had some very powerful emotional things. She ended with an example of what it's like to be Black and traveling in the US, and how VR can help somebody understand more, have more empathy and maybe compassion for what that's like. So that was a very powerful presentation. And yeah, there were others, speakers from NVIDIA. That's probably enough, Kevin, for people to get a flavor of
Sure, sounds good.
IZIP and service innovation and Tech for Good.
No, I'm glad it went well. Sounds like it did. Certainly some interesting content there. Looking forward to participating on that in the future. I just had a conflict with a client engagement, and when the client's paying, I have to, generally say yes, right? Right. That's
of course, of course. And I
Mike.
will put the recording into the chat for anybody who wants to actually see it at 2x speed or whatever you watch. And there's the presentation and the link to the survey. 250 plus people registered and 70 showed up live. So it was okay.
Good. Yeah. Good. I'm one of the people that signed up that didn't show up, but I will watch it for sure. Right.
You probably got an email from me this morning with the links. Yeah.
That's good. Mike McGuire, how are you, my friend?
Good how are you?
We are,
nice to see you
recording.
Guys.
We are underway, and this is Content Evolution NuWorld from, here in Chapel Hill, Research Triangle region, and Mike, right out on the West Coast in Silicon Valley. So we're really glad to have you with us. It's an open mic. Glad to see Jim just shared a little bit with us. Mac Turner's here. Jamae Bliven is here. Kyle Shannon, Bruce Parks. It's great to have you with us. So what else is on our minds today? Any other talks? Thanks for putting that chat, Jim. Greatly appreciate it. Mike, anything on your mind as we get underway today? By the way, if you
Well,
hear
I think
like
my-
it sounds like a Benihana here, it's because my part of my kitchen is being spackled, and it just sounds, it sounds like they're doing, meat on the table. It's not. It's on the ceiling. So go ahead.
no, I was just maybe a few people are paying attention to I was looking for information and news out of the Google antitrust trial. However, apparently it's already taken the record for the least open, most in-camera sessions of any trial in the federal court system in a long time. Just when they get to the good parts, apparently, all the press and everybody have to leave the courtroom, and for alleged trade secrets. So I've been kind of curious about, it's interesting when companies like that talk about transparency, and it's like, well, until it really matters, and we get in a courtroom. Apparently, it's all trade secrets, I guess, is their concern. So I've been kind of trying to get pick news out of that.
The appearance of transparency, Mike.
A fig leaf of a transparency of a fig leaf.
Exactly.
Not what we say, what we do. Which I think is probably what we all should just keep in mind about Google.
Have we ever had a trial in a skiff?
Right.
So I don't know. All right. And if it was, would we ever hear about it? All right. So maybe what's that FISA court?
Google may get a really big fine. We don't know, but probably won't hear about it.
So the FISA court, you never hear about, if you take something to them, all right, that's kind of sealed up, right? So I suppose you could, maybe could the FISA court have a trial? That would be an interesting thought experiment.
Well, we get more out of some of what few legal maneuvers have happened in Guantanamo so far than we have at the Google trial.
All right. There you go.
So that's what's been on my mind. That and try to doing some work with my client. And I'm going to be going out on a limb, presenting a kind of rough idea of a business plan for a direction they've not gone in yet. So we'll see. It's all fun.
This is your the team that joined us last week.
Sorry, Chris was on last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is about providing music licensing and agreements in a more fluid way for a variety of applications, because it can be tricky if you don't work with a company like Feed Media. All right, so cool. Jermaine, we haven't seen you in a while. We're glad. It looks like you're traveling again. You're in a hotel room. I'm guessing that is not home.
I am. That's my hotel. Yeah, I'm in Oregon. I leave today. Had to drop the daughter off for college.
Yeah.
They start so late. I mean, they're on quarters, so they start so late. They started yesterday.
Wow.
How's the book coming along?
It's coming along good. I had a podcast. Thank you. I tagged you, Kevin. And I have another podcast tomorrow. So that's helping. That's helping get the word out. So I think it's going well.
Okay. Mike, take over for a second. I've got something else happening here at the house.
No worries. So Jermaine, could you put your link, or can I find the podcast on your site or any of the podcasting services like Apple, etc.?
There was I'll do the podcast that I just did yesterday. Let me find it. That came out yesterday. It's a new podcast called Workforce. It was a fun podcast. It's by a guy that I've worked with for many years, and I was their first guest, so it was really fun.
Really cool.
It.
Now, when Kevin started, I was curious. I thought maybe you were starting your own podcast.
Oh God, no! Oh no! Oh no, that would be so much work. That's a lot of.
It is.
No, yeah, I was just on a podcast and I've got another one that I'm going to be on tomorrow. So it's a good way to, get the word out, you know?
Absolutely. No, I
Hey,
mean,
we're getting
particularly
some,
for, go
we're
ahead,
getting
Kyle,
some
sorry.
we're getting some weird echoes. If you're not speaking, can you mute? I think someone's mic is feeding back.
Testing, testing, testing.
Hello, hello. Talk again, Jimmy.
I'll mute. It could be this hotel room.
Could be the Wi-Fi, yeah. Are you in,
Yeah, I'll mute.
are you at Oregon? Are you at the University of Oregon or Oregon State?
Yeah, university. It's a good town. Yep.
Love that town.
I did.
Oh.
Did all of you, hi, good morning, everybody. Did all of you know about when the Chinese bought all the hotel rooms in New York and around the world and bugged them? They had
Hadn't
to
heard that.
stop, they had to stop having meetings at the Waldorf Astoria and other places like that, which are owned by Chinese, because they had literally bugged every room, every meeting room.
I don't remember. I didn't hear that. That must have been back in the 80s.
No, that was actually relatively recent. Well, connect with Mark Anderson and he'll tell you everything, everything you want to know about how the Chinese have been in the past. I think things are going to change maybe a little bit, although they're getting desperate and things are going bad there.
I think they figured out they're better targeting scenarios than just every hotel room. So I hope.
Well, I don't think it was every hotel. I think it was just the hotel rooms where the big companies met. I met a guy who was doing very, very spooky stuff who I guess they didn't have a skiff and they just went out in the middle of fields to hold their meetings because they said it's once they know who we are, they can find out where we're going and they can get us.
Sure.
That is scary. Yes, I shared the podcast if anybody's.
Oh, cool.
Thank you.
Congrats. No, thanks. Jim put the ISIP in there as well. Okay. Did I say that right, Jim? Or is it ISIP? Anyhow, we'll go check out that event recording. Any other top of the news stuff today, or at least since we last gathered? As I said, I was just keeping an eye on the Google trial. Seems pretty quiet on that. I was looking at the headphone. I guess Kyle, did any of your buddies go get the new headset from Meta?
Oh, I don't know. No one that I know is.
You're like not even into virtual reality anymore, are you? You're just like full into generative AI. You don't.
Well, I thought one of the most fascinating things about a clip I saw from the Meta event yesterday was that one of the people from Meta referred to what their goggles do is spatial computing. So they have fully adopted, apparently, Apple's repositioning of the metaverse to not call it the metaverse anymore and to call it spatial computing. I thought that was, I'm like, do you have a PR firm? Does anybody there, like, is there any self-awareness or have they cut a deal with Apple? I thought that was bizarre.
Because Apple still doesn't like you and they're not going to let the app in without review.
Well, but it's just like, I was impressed that Apple repositioned the metaverse into this new thing called spatial computing. And I was just blown away yesterday that someone from Meta didn't call it the metaverse, but called it spatial computing. I was blown away by that.
That is a lack of message discipline if they had it at all, right?
Or
If they had any ever to
in the
begin
making.
with.
Or a change coming.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I was like, how can we be friends with Apple now? We'll adopt their term. But because I'm trying to, I think, it's a self-contained universe in Meta, right? It's not, there's no app there's not people developing apps the same app for both platforms at this point.
Yeah,
right?
No, they're proprietary at this point. Yeah. So I don't know. It's bizarre. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. They launched their AI yesterday. The thing that I think is more significant right now is OpenAI over the next 2 weeks is launching ChatGPT Vision, so you can upload images to it and it can analyze them. They've they've reintroduced ChatGPT being connected to the internet. Browse with Bing is now back in ChatGPT. And some and then the ChatGPT app, you can now talk to it and it'll talk back, so you can have a conversation with ChatGPT. So all of that's rolling out in the next 2 weeks. November 1st, Microsoft is rolling out Copilot in Office 365, and then sometime in the next month or so, Google is launching Gemini, which is a multimodal GPT-4 competitor. So there's the next month and a half or 2 months is going to be an insane shift in what these models can do and how people use them. I almost feel like we're having to start over in learning what is possible.
I use multimodal and other things, but when you say multimodal, do you mean, mobile app, desktop, etc., or what?
No,
what do you mean by that?
So right now, ChatGPT just does text.
Right.
So with the
I see.
With the launch of DALL-E 3, it will be able to generate images as well as text. It can now. I'm still getting that weird echo. Can people that aren't speaking mute? The ability to see to understand an image like what I've seen on Twitter in the past few hours is people are doing things like taking pictures of whiteboards, of schematics of software, and telling ChatGPT to analyze the whiteboard and write the code, and it does. People take a screenshot of an interface with multiple modalities in it, like a dashboard, and just say, analyze the components of this and write me code to replicate these components, and it does. So the ability, and then you'll also be able to talk to it, right? So it will be able to talk back to you. So everything except video right now is going to be both inputs and outputs of ChatGPT in the coming months. And then I think Google Gemini is going to be similarly multimodal. So we're going to have 2 major players before the end of the year where what you can do with them is completely new territory.
Kyle, can you share what you posted up on LinkedIn and TikTok?
Oh, yeah. This is...
I couldn't make the salon Tuesday, Kyle. Sorry.
This is cool. No, this is just I'm going to be doing this for sure.
This is unbelievable. Let me just open it up. I'll share my screen, share sound. All right. You can see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
My lovely visage. So all of this translation was done in ChatGPT, but watch this.
23日会议讲是什么样子？我将分享人工智能及其实现的许多知识。我将分享我们目前的内容模块化方法，以及我如何扩展该产品和功能机的经验和策略。
So,
it's even got your pauses and stuff.
Yeah,
the way you do it.
I now speak fluent Mandarin. Wait, I'll play it long enough till I say Storyvine.
我还要谈谈已经。
Oh, and let me just pause right there. So one of the things this tech is doing is resyncing my lips to the new language. But notice when I move my hand in front of my face, it actually goes inside my head. So because what they're doing is they're taking the lower part of my face and layering that on top, right? You can't really notice it if you're just watching it.
That is insane.
That's how they're doing it. And so they're synthing my voice, doing the translation, reconstituting the voice matched to the cadence of how I talked, and then resyncing the lips on top.
整合到 Storyvine 中的 AI 工具，我们正在考虑整合到 Storyvine 中的工具。最重要的是，听取您对有价值、令人兴奋、可等待、
It
使
even
命关
matches your
键的
pitch of your natural
yeah.
pitch of your voice.
Yep.
反馈意见。
Like
Well-
just, you know, like for me personally, like this sounds like a video of me. Like I watch videos of me, you know, all the time. And it's like I know what I sound like. Yeah, this is kind of what I sound like. Like it might not have quite as much sort of dynamics.
It
as-
doesn't
as
have the
they-
full range, but it's
Well,
But it-
because
but it's-
it can't have the full range because Chinese, real Chinese is
Yeah.
tritonal. So
Mm.
it's
这个
having
输
to
入
make
确
a thing between his inflections and what Chinese demands in terms of saying the words right.
Yeah.
定
Very
产品和
interesting.
工
So anyway, so the technology is called HeyGen, HEYGEN. If you go to labs.heygen.com, there's a here, I'll put it in the thing. labs.heygen.com/video translate. If you sign up, you get 2 free credits, so you can upload a video up to 5 minutes in length. And then I think they have 12 languages there. I did another one in Italian, and I've had native Italian speakers say that the Italian was good, the inflection was good. Someone that told me they were decent at Mandarin said that sounded right to them. So I think what it's doing is amazing. One thing that's fascinating, Kevin, I was doing a live last night, and one of the people on the live asked, you know, was this way more complicated for the company to do? Was the Mandarin Chinese more complicated for them to do than the Italian, right? Because Italian is closer to English. And I said, from my understanding of how this generative AI stuff works, I don't think it would make a difference. And one of the guys in my live last night actually works at Google, and he confirmed that it's no different for them doing Chinese than it is that them doing Italian. Just if you put the right stuff in the training set, it learns it.
Sure.
So it's just we're moving into a kind of staggering phase. I mean, the other thing about that technology, the founder of that company said that the only thing preventing them from doing that translation in real time is compute power. So probably within a year, maybe 2, we're going to have the ability to be on a call like this with people from anywhere in the world, everyone speaking their own language and everyone hearing their own native language.
Yeah.
Like we are,
Yeah, I mean,
we are entering crazy space.
So you uploaded a 2-minute video. I'm just curious, what was the render time longer than other graphic
Well,
or
so
video?
if you're doing free credits, as you can imagine, their servers are slammed. So if you're not doing the paid version, you get deprioritized, so you go into a queue. So
Sure.
when I did the Chinese one, I was like 83,000th in line, and it took 5 days. The actual thing, if you get in the queue, is like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that.
What's the cost to subscribe?
The lowest subscription is $60 a month for 30 credits, up to 5 minutes each. And so it's, you know, a quarter a minute or something like that, which compared to what the alternative is insanely cheap. And then there was like a $179 a month version that gave you 60 credits, but you could do videos up to 20 minutes long. So now you're starting to get into, you know,
Yeah.
real,
I mean, yeah, if you were just, you know, trying to add some narrative, you know, to your website in the major markets that you serve, that's an inexpensive, you know, way of adding valuable content.
yeah, and I think you end up, I mean, like, so one of the things that in OpenAI's announcement of their platform going multimodal, they've cut a deal with Spotify where they identified 10 high-profile podcasters like Lex Friedman that they're automatically translating their podcasts into different languages for different markets. So you're going to be able to, take your podcast and just enter the Spanish market, enter the Japanese market without really doing anything. That's going to be a built-in feature of Spotify. Right now, it's limited to, people they let into the program just from a
Right.
safety standpoint. But yeah, I'm struggling to get my head around the implications of if we instantly, as a global community, the language barrier disappears overnight. Like, what are the implications of that?
Well, but
What-
we've seen this
what
on
happens to
Star
the
Trek
UN?
with the universal translator that, it's I think
Well,
that becomes pretty common pretty quickly.
Yeah, I do too. But it's like there are entire industries built around, closing that gap. And if that gap just instantly closes, what happens to those organizations? What happens to the UN? I mean, I
Well,
think it still serves other purposes.
I
than
might
translation.
suggest,
Well, yeah, I think.
from personal experience, that I started off life not being a good speller. I
Mhm.
could not spell, all right, to save my soul. And I got, through brute force, got better. But the minute I started to use a computer that had spell check, and it told me instantaneously, that's not the right word, right? Well, what is it? Okay, it's this. The minute I had instant feedback, I'm a really good speller now, right? And that happened, mid-20s, as opposed to, when I was supposed to be learning it, in grade school. I suspect that these translators are going to be a gateway for people to actually learning the languages, because it translates them real time, that you will actually pick up the other language in a more effective way than had you been taught the language, because it's actually doing it real time, right? Your brain is rewiring itself.
Yep. Yeah.
That is
yeah.
that by doing it, if you do it often enough, you're going to learn the other language.
And can I add to that?
Right.
I think that's to me that's an old perspective of you had to learn a language, that a human being's brain needs to know more than one language. Now, if this takes a month, imagine how long it takes that it's in your phone, that it happens in real time, that when you meet a person who doesn't speak your language, you guys are speaking to each other out loud in real time. So why there's not going to be a need for languages. There's not going to be a need for this kind of stuff. And so the implication for me is really young people. If you bring up kids where every kid in every class has a phone where they can talk to every person in the world, or whatever device it is, immediately, that's a huge implication. It's the next generation implication, not just us, because we're gonna have fun with it.
I would just say that the underlying reason that people suggested a different language is that every language has a different set of expressive capacities. And therefore, it gives you a completely different perspective on the world around you, because language forms part of your worldview, right? So if you learn a different language, you have a different lens on, cultures and what that culture values, and so on and so forth. So we don't necessarily want to strip that away, because English is only so good, right, at what it does. The one thing that English has a tendency to do is it's acquisitive. It brings in words from other languages, right, when it doesn't have the ability to do that, where, say, like French, they actively oppose, bringing in, other words from other languages. So at any rate, I just tell you that that's the reason that a lot of educators, right, would indicate that learning a different language has that potential value to it. And I studied dead languages like Latin because I wanted to know the roots. I wanted to know the Latinate roots, because that was helpful in other, parts of my world, like naming, right? Is it helps to know Latin.
So yeah, I would, if we were having a private conversation here, I would agree with you with what you said. I would say maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe that's just an explanation of for making a bug into a feature, and that we can achieve that point of view, the different points of view
Mhm.
differently. The points
Maybe.
of view is useful, but you don't need to spend, a lot of your life learning another language in order to achieve the perspective that you get that way.
Maybe. I don't know.
And it would be interesting to discuss, given English doesn't have gender-specific words,
Right.
while French and Spanish and other languages do. And those gender-specific words create a different cultural nuance or reality that we as English speakers don't experience. So experiencing the culture through the language might end up in some loss of trying to be able to appreciate that difference in the culture. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
don't,
that to me is the same loss that you would get when everybody could shoot a bow and arrow or something like that. We had particular things that we didn't have that we've lost. Lots of things go away that we think are valuable, but they just go away because of the technology.
because they're not needed. It's funny, Monique, my business partner, who you may know, her brother lives in Germany and his wife's native German, and he speaks German really well. And she did one of these videos where she talked really slow in English and then had it translate to German. So it made it look like she goes, "Hey, I've been brushing up on my German," and translated it to German and sent it to them. And his response to her was, I could tell it was fake, not so much because it looked fake or sounded fake, but because her German was too good for only having studied for 2 months, that she used nuances in German that she would have had to study for at least 6 months to get that level of nuance. So I think whatever translation it's doing a pretty remarkable job from what I can tell.
It was because German expression and the words in German have a tendency to be more lengthy. All right. Is I'm wondering whether, the translation, I think has to add time, all right, into the video for
It was
the
weird.
length of expression.
Hers kind of messed up because she talked really slow on purpose, and it
Mhm.
didn't deal well with her talking artificially slow. So
Okay.
her lip syncing was off a little bit, but the ones I did were pretty remarkable. I look at it, with the exception of the bug when you move your hand in front of your face, which I assume that's a relatively easy fix.
You're doing it now. So
Yeah, exactly.
this is
See,
a serious
it's really
gesture
me.
that you do.
My hand is not inside my head. This is really me.
Well, there
All
goes the
right.
simultaneous translation business right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's just insane.
It's
I-
insane.
Well, I mean, it means that business meetings are going to be, pretty fluid
Yeah.
going forward. Here's potentially the, like we discussed before, here's potentially is if it has to go through a third party's cloud server, and now you're doing a really sensitive negotiation between country A and country B, all right, do you really want to disclose that conversation to a third party? Right, because it's going
not
through
going to
their
it's not going to necessarily go there. I saw this morning Qualcomm's putting out a chip that can be installed in phones that, like,
Mhm.
I think they just announced it today or launched it today, that will do strong machine learning on device. And Apple has announced the same thing. Apple's last two announcements, their Vision Pro and their iPhone 15, have both talked about doubling their on device machine learning capability. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of this stuff is going to happen on device very, very quickly. The other thing I'll bring up that I think is, like, let's extend this beyond, language translation. We're moving into this bizarre, like, it's bizarre now. I think your point is right, Mark, that the things that seem bizarre now are just going to come natural to us.
Yeah.
That having to have vertical domain expertise is going to be optional rather than required moving forward. Meaning, I'm going to be able to be really good at software engineering, and I'm going to be able to be really good at user interface. And I'm like, just think of every vertical discipline as a foreign language. And so just like I can now speak, natural man, or fluent Mandarin, I'll be able to speak fluent senior software engineer, or fluent consultant, or fluent novelist, or fluent, like, take any vertical discipline. And the implication of that for me is the critical thing moving forward is orchestration and curation, the ability to think across disciplines.
Yep.
And understand what I'm trying to accomplish. And like, what does that do to someone who's spent 40 years in a single discipline?
Well, while you were talking earlier, Kyle, I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to do anything in public anymore, right? If somebody can walk up behind me with their smartphone and take a snapshot of the code I'm writing on my screen and go, there's a new business. And I thought, oh, right, we're going to have to block our screens. And I thought, no, just go do it again.
It's
just
so,
go do the next,
so much
what's
worse
the
than
next
that.
thing?
It's when you launch your app, I can just screenshot the like it's
and make one like this.
Yeah, and this is there was a Google employee that put out a piece called "We Have No Moat," where he was talking about the Google large language models, where the open source community was creating large language models for $100 that were almost as powerful as the ones that cost Google $10 million to build. Every single thing that you build is going to be able to be knocked off like that, right? So again, like, so what does that mean? I don't, like, right now I'm in this place where I have zero answers about any of this, other than just, I don't know.
Kyle, back to the translations themselves.
Yeah.
How did it handle things like analogy and metaphor and local colloquial types of expression?
That's a good
So here's the thing that this is the most, for me, the most profound shift that we're in the middle of is that nobody programmed a computer to explicitly define all of those exceptions. The way the machine learning stuff works is you dump in a pile of Chinese that's tagged, you dump in a pile of English, and the machine figures out all that shit. I don't know, and a lot of data scientists don't know exactly how these things do what they do. But when things get embedded into these systems, they're no longer their original form. They're just mathematical points in vector space. So when you take all of the knowledge of the internet and you do this thing called embedding, it basically pulls out the words from those documents. The documents themselves cease to exist. The only thing that exists is the words get grouped into semantic clusters. And the one that I think about is the word dog. So you put in a bunch of papers, and in one semantic cluster, the word dog will be in a cluster with things like cats and birds and fish and things like that. In another semantic cluster, the word dog will be the guy did his girl bad and he's a dog, right? So and there's sort of an infinite number of variations of those. So all these words basically go into, they get turned into points in mathematical vector space. It's this 1,000-dimensional space. And then when you write a prompt, it's literally just sort of reaching into that thing and pulling the data out from that mathematical space and reconstructing shit. And that's how it does it for language. It's how it does it for pictures. It's how it does it for translations. It's how it does it for music. It's all the same core technology, where the original source stuff ceases to exist, and just sort of the components are in this bizarre mathematical space that get reconstructed every time you do something. It's mind-blowing that it does what it does. So I don't know.
We had a simple example, and this was English to English. It wasn't English to Chinese, where someone had written a questionnaire and used the expression nickel and dime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to a person in London or Williston or Edinburgh, that was not something in their neural set.
Yep.
Does that translate literally as nickel and dime, or does it search for an equivalent way of?
It would search for an equivalent if you had a training set. Like I could see someone saying, hey, there are 53 major variations of the English language, right? And I'm going to do a training set on English to English translation. So you could absolutely train for it. Whether or not someone has explicitly trained for it is a whole different question. But you could absolutely do training sets that are fine-tuned for different variations of English, I would think.
Yeah, and I would think that would all the classic one is the early Russian translator that translated out of sight, out of mind as invisible lunatic. But that stuff, those are just small use cases that eventually we'll become aware of and deal with along the way. To me, the real big thing, and I say this, I'm just going to preface this with the fact that I want to let everybody know I'm going to India for a month in November, December. So if you have any connections in India that might be helpful to me, or if I can help you, let me know. I'm probably going to a lot of places, but the key to me is always kids growing up in this world where is so unlike in what Kyle's describing, so unlike the world that we grew up in. And yet we are the people who are, traditionally responsible for bringing them up, especially as educators and as parents and stuff. So the question, which is the same question that's been around with the cell phones and everything else, how early do you let them do this stuff? Or do you encourage them to do this stuff? And my sense is immediately. Yeah.
Immediately. I think so too. I mean, listen, I kind of feel like with these AI tools right now, we're kind of in the equivalent of MS-DOS 1.0, right? The fact that we have to go into ChatGPT and type a command line, some version of a command line, and it spits back text is kind of like DOS, right? To make an image in Midjourney, you log into Discord, you type a command line with modifiers, and it makes an image. 3 years from now, this is going to be kind of instant, transparent magic, right? Like sci-fi magic. So I think, Mark, your point is right. Like the tools right now might not be kid friendly, but I think the concepts of that idea of them not having to choose a vertical expertise, they can choose to choose one, but that it's not a requirement to choose one. And I think our entire educational system right now, for the most part, with the exception of liberal arts education, is designed to teach people to do vertical expertise, right? And you're going to go into the workforce and you're going to do that vertical expertise. There's very little training for what if you didn't have to know any of that.
That's right.
Then what do you do?
What if we're all Portuguese men of war with all those tentacles hanging down, instead of one thing here in a T shape? We were all Portuguese men of war with every tentacle.
Yep. And like that's where I think it's going. And then, so what do you teach kids today? I don't know. Critical thinking is the only thing I can think of.
What I think is you don't teach them, you have them do, and then you correct them as they go, and they learn what they need as to do whatever they want to do. That's my view of how it's going. Education is from a time, and teaching people certain stuff is from a time of scarcity when information and teachers were scarce. So not only did we teach them in advance, but we batch processed them in advance. So that's still what we do today. But that's just not related to the world that we're discussing, that you're describing, Kyle.
Yeah, I'll share an anecdote that you'll love, Mark. So I was teaching at Monique's school. Her kid goes to this, special neurodivergent school. So the kids are all over the place. This one 10-year-old kid, after I taught a bunch of AI stuff, said, "Oh, I'm programming. I'm writing a program right now." I'm like, "Oh, what are you writing?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm doing a Flappy Bird clone in C sharp." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." He goes, "Yeah, but I got a bug, so I'm gonna have to throw out the code and start over." And I said, "Have you tried ChatGPT?" He's like, "Yeah, whatever." And I'm like, he's like 10, like he's got a lot of attitude. And so I said, well, here, let's just play. And so I went to ChatGPT and I wrote, can you write a Flappy Birds clone in C sharp that can run on the Unity platform? And it just spit out this code. And his mouth literally did this. He went, and he goes, "I got to go get my computer." And he ran down 4 flights of stairs. He ran back up. We grabbed his code that had a bug in it, copied and pasted it into ChatGPT, said, "Where's the bug?" There was a single typo, fixed it. I said, "Copy and paste that back into Unity." He copied and pasted it back and was playing Flappy Birds. It worked. And he stopped for a second and he looked at me. He's 10. He looked at me and he goes, "This changes everything." And it's like, oh shit. Like, someone at 10 can recognize that whatever he was learning is a fundamentally different thing than what this thing is. And at 10, like in one example, his mind went, "Oh, the rules just changed."
Yeah.
Here's another thing.
Well, I mean,
Kevin,
how many
I don't mean to take up the time, but this is being recorded. So what I want to do is grab that clip of you telling that story with your permission, and then use that in places. So the stories that we tell are very important, and now they're being captured.
Yeah, that works. I think it was the New York Times that just said that it's too late to have young people learn computer science, right? Because that's not the discipline that you need to know. You need to kind of go back to, more broad liberal arts, general knowledge, right? Because those are the keys to the kingdom, right? Just being able to, have general intelligence, because the specific intelligence you need is going to be immediately available, right? So how do you, train not specialists? That's been the way to have a career, is to be a specialist, right? The new, right, winner is be a generalist. Be a really good generalist, right?
Yep.
And
Well, I
so
mean-
the T-type personality is actually just a dash now.
Yeah.
You don't need the
Kyle-
downstroke anymore.
Kyle, that anecdote with the kid is priceless, because as you were speaking about code, it was like, I knew enough to be not even dangerous, but conversant when I started, because I didn't go to have computer science. But you remember that, right? You'd be working with somebody, you'd be trying to tell them, no, the product, it needs to do X and Y. Like, you don't understand how the code does, A and B. And I'm like they gave you like the codes, like, okay, go find where you think the mistake is, right? That's what turned me off to programming.
Yeah.
Right. Was that, well, go do it, go learn this on your own. It's like, wait a minute. I can't. I just need to tell you what. And in the end, that guy I worked with, who was that kind of arrogant coder, who said, "Yeah, go see if you can find the mistake." I'm like, "You're out of work."
Yeah.
That story you just told me is like, this is what happens when you're a snot to your coworkers 15 years ago.
This
is what happens.
Exactly. This is revenge of the liberal arts majors and revenge of the Gen Xers. If we just wait long enough, the world will come to us.
Exactly.
I want to jump in for just a second.
Yeah,
I've got a second Kevin's insight on that. I think that the liberal arts background gives you insights that you can't really develop if what you are is someone who has a deep knowledge of a specific vertical, and I think that's going to really have profound influence on people. I can remember that I saw a sign in the Stanford Computer Lab when I was a kid that said information overload equals pattern recognition. And I think that is true. If you don't have that liberal arts background, a broad perspective, you're gonna miss the the nuance that we were talking about a little bit earlier about English, about translation of language. You're going to miss something, and very frequently that something that you miss is critical.
Yeah, I mean, that quote, by
Absolutely.
the way, that information overload is a McLuhan aphorism.
Oh, is that right? I never know where that came from, but
Yeah, it's Marshall McLuhan, right?
I saw that on the Stanford Computer Center wall in about 1960, I don't know, 4.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's true, because if you understand pointillism, right, as a form of art, is if you
Right.
stand too close to the dots, you can't see anything. You have to step back, right?
Exactly.
And so that is highly related to the I think it's Alan Kay quote of perspective is worth 80 IQ points.
Yeah.
Is you gotta dolly up and out, right, to be able to see, what's actually there. And, I would say, Kyle, you have deeply immersed yourself in the space that you're studying, but you continue, right, every time we talk to you, is you're dollying up and out, right? It's just getting, the picture is getting bigger, and it looked complete last time, but no, there are new elements. Okay. It's a different picture this week, right? We didn't throw anything away. There wasn't anything discarded, but it just keeps on morphing.
Well,
Yeah.
Kyle said, what you said earlier, it's like at the very beginning, you said, I think your quote was something like, I think we need to forget everything we've learned in the last couple of months. As we've all been playing with these tools. That, and I think that's not just another case of, the revenge of the liberal arts major, but that flexibility that you have as a liberal arts major, because you're moving from in different areas, to me has always been about, as Mac, you were describing, and you too, Bruce, was it's not that liberal arts majors are inherently more empathetic, but I think when you have that span of things, you open yourself up more with the empathy to learn, right? Because that's what I always, when you're in engineering, you learn certain ways to code or certain ways to design. You learn physics, which are immutable, right? But in liberal arts, there's not really that many hard lines around whatever the major is, right?
No,
and
but physics isn't immutable once you get into quantum.
So what we're saying is liberal arts is not a thing.
Okay, but I'm not going to be able using quantum to be building any bridges lately, right? I still want the bridge builders to have some grounding in basic physics.
I mean, I would like the bridge builders to build in energy fields, right? Because then they'd actually understand the structure better. But never mind. Yes, Mark.
Mike, you're using liberal arts as a metaphor. And not as a thing where schools, I went through a liberal arts degree. It produces different things in different people. And what we're learning now is who are the people who are gifted at that particular thing, who benefit from the liberal. Lots of people go through the liberal arts colleges and become engineers or lawyers or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
The metaphor that we're talking about here, not a thing.
Now, I would say that what we have the potential to retrieve is the notion of a Renaissance person. The person
That's a metaphor too.
Able to absorb all human knowledge because it was available to him or her. And it was, at the time, it was a small enough universe of information that it was knowable. Well, now there's an explosion and you cannot know all of it. So the point is, you have to be able to understand the index of that knowledge because it's always available, right? And so it's the accessibility and being able to understand the structure of knowledge that becomes the ability to be Renaissance.
But you do absorb all of it if you take the perspective that you are not just the human wetware, but the human wetware plus all the AI and all the things that are being developed. That's the new you. Then you can take in, you essentially are taking in every time you do something, all human knowledge.
Yeah.
It's potential for, it's not that, I don't know that any person is going to be able to, unless we put the chip in our head. All right. If you put
It
the
will be
chip in your
there.
head, Mark, then maybe you would be able to achieve that,
But it's
Well,
metaphorically in Kyle's head. That I'm just
Okay,
saying it is
yes,
in
yes.
Kyle's head.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, what's a picture? Who put this
Oh,
up?
this is just this is the era that I think we're entering. I mean, this is from a keynote that I give on comparing 2023 to 1995, that the birth of the AI stuff is very similar to the birth of the web back then, but that this date is the beginning of, this will mark the beginning of what I think is going to be a great renaissance, which is if you democratize all expertise, then the only thing that's really relevant is people's intentions. Back to content evolution, be intentional, right? This is about human intention. And I think the deeper that I dig into this, then the more that I can kind of see the fractals of what might be coming. I just keep having this sense that the robots are going to return us to our humanity. And that it really starts to become, what does Mike need? Oh, I can help with that. I almost feel like
The community comes back, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and
It moves back from a virtual community focus to our immediate.
To actually connecting and just giving people what they need, and either the machines are going to give us what I need, or humans using these tools as intermediaries are going to solve the challenge of problem solving essentially gets handled by the machines. And then the only thing left is human intention. And then, okay, if it's human intention, then what's the intention? I don't know, to connect, to make a difference, to engage, I feel like it will free us up out of the just insanity of the complicated world that we've created over the past 10,000 years. And it's going to allow us to rise up above that and just let the machines do all of the details down below. That's where my head is increasingly with this stuff.
Okay,
A
Jim, your hand is up.
question. Yeah, a question for Kyle on that last very interesting point of many. What happens when the machines stop working?
I don't know. We start over, I suppose. It maybe reminds us that we didn't need them in the first place. I don't know. Because the thing about this stuff, I mean, I think about that a lot, right? If the governments really want to stop this thing, they drop an EMF bomb and they basically shut down all the computers, right? Like, you can stop this, but you essentially stop modern society.
Yeah.
Right. So you either don't stop it, and we go to this place where the machines kind of solve a lot of the complexity, and then we're free to just be who we want to be. Or you say that's too dangerous, so we're going to shut the thing down. And then we go back to, all right, I guess we're going to have to learn how to follow directions in the woods again and start firing.
And multiple languages, God forbid.
Yeah, exactly. I guess we're going to have to go back to learning languages again.
I think it's important.
If I could build 1 second and on what both Jim and Kyle are saying, somebody pointed out something that I'm going to share because it made such a difference to me. We talk about human uniqueness, and we always talk about it in terms of how you look or how you do this or even how you think or what languages you know. And what somebody said is, no, the human uniqueness is in the choices we make, in the things we choose to do. And at the end of your life, you will have a set of choices made, and that will be what made you the unique person you are. So that goes back to intention, because when I hear intentions from Kyle, I hear choices. And so that's what you uniquely have to make, that's going to make you a unique contributor, unique person in the world.
That's why we chose the name Choice Flows for our research business. Exactly that reason. Yes, Jim, back to you. You were about to say something. And I see Max hand up.
Yeah, I'll just put it in the chat, but it is important to think about what happens when the machines stop working.
Yeah.
Power outages.
The fact is that the old NASA in me says, your first thing is, do you have any redundancy and resilience in the system, as opposed to it only being a single capability? That's
to your point, Jim. I mean, not just the machines that keep the AI engine running. I mean, we need some real update to our existing physical infrastructure, like our water systems, that I would hope somewhere there's somebody with a liberal arts background who has an interest in mechanical engineering and thermodynamics and is like, hey, let me go have a chat to figure out how can we update our existing water treatment plants? Why is desalination not working right now on scale?
Back to the New York Times.
I guess I should probably go work on that since I have a liberal arts major. So
is there a reason that we want to use all of our groundwater to frack for oil? Is that really a good system?
That seems like
theory use of the resources
of a limited resource.
Your hand was up and now it's down. Are you giving up?
No, and the comment goes back about 10 minutes. But to build on something that Mark was talking about, how does this affect the educational system? We currently have an educational system in which children are stacked ranked based on not making errors.
Right.
But I think what we are discussing is a system in which the creativity of the error, does the error move the process forward, is actually more valuable than not making an error. So think how we build reinforcement systems and what gets rewarded also would fundamentally change.
Yeah, can we build rapid prototyping into the way that we learn as opposed to, we know what the right answer is here. Okay, Kyle, you put your hand down, Mark put his hand up, and we're going to wrap in a few minutes. So
that was not my hand. That was a thumbs up to the comment.
Oh, a thumbs up.
That was
You know what?
made before.
Mine was too. Mine was a thumbs up. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for using more emojis than just hand raising. I'm so primed, right, as a moderator to want to think that is raising your hand. That tells you something.
Great session.
All right, Mike, any closing thoughts as we
Boy,
wrap
I don't know.
this?
I think we got to do these open mics more frequently, Kevin. We always have a great conversation, it seems like, and not when we have a scheduled guest that those aren't great, but I think we can hopefully we've got it recorded, and we'll go in and do some summations and see what we come up with.
And it's only because the people who choose to show up are such good, bring such good ideas to the table. So Thank you much. Appreciate it. We will see you next week on Thursday. Mike, cheers.
Bye-bye.